House of Decline podcast, which is very disorganized in terms of subject matter. Sometimes it's a show about journalistically documenting the Toronto music scene. Sometimes it's Trans Rogan. And today is another Trogan episode.
Oh, yeah.
It's Trogan. And on it, we have a theater director, podcast genius. You can hear his podcast, The Worst of All Possible Worlds, and Ill-Conceived. Both of which are excellent. I've been listening to some of the episodes. We have on Josh Boerman.
What up? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. Earlier, we were talking about Grimes,
yes.
Or I had made a shit post. Which is a sort of an outdated term at this point, but it's not even a shit post. I was just expressing how I was feeling stridently. Like, how can anyone like Grimes? The second I heard Oblivion, I knew this is a dangerous sociopath, you know? You know, you ever hear that Bill Burr bit where he's talking about, like, I heard Kanye, I heard a speech talking, and it's like, thank God it's a black guy, because if this soul had drifted into a white guy, this evil soul, this untold damage could have been done. And I sort of feel the same way about Grimes, where it's like, right from the get-go, I think this is, you know, there's something uncanny and inhuman about it.
I've gone back and, you know, I feel like something that's a piece of the deep Josh lore is I worked at American Apparel for a little while in the early 2010s.
Oh, wow.
So like I was there. I was fucking there, LCD sound system style, and I can tell you that shit. Like there was this absence of anything there was this gaping void at the heart of the thing. And I'm with you. I think it's epitomized by Grimes's music. I will say I think she is talented as a producer. Like she is able to put things together in a way that has sonic character to it. But as a musician, I'm not super impressed. I think her remixes are really good.
I think she's talented in the same way that Werner von Braun was talented. Yeah, sure.
Or you made the comparison to Jack Antonoff as well, which I think is a useful point of comparison. Again, I got to put my cards on the table. I kind of like Bleachers. I know that's a disgusting opinion, but I just have to say it.
It's fine to like Bleachers. I mean, my problem is how into... Are you a music head? Would you consider yourself a music head?
I would consider myself a mild music head, yeah.
Well, because you're in theater.
Yeah.
But it's not usually musical theater, though.
I don't really direct musicals, no, but I know a lot about musicals, and we frequently cover musicals on The Worst of All Possible Worlds because my co-hosts are both pretty big into specifically the work of Stephen Sondheim.
Oh, yeah, you gotta love it.
Who is the greatest? I mean, we all have to admit that Steve's the GOAT. Like,
even if you dislike musicals, as I am not the biggest musical bitch in the world, but it's like Into the Woods will be like, I don't know, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Assassins, I don't know, it's pretty good. It's a lot of
Assassins is extraordinary.
Yeah, and I think what is the quality of but other ones like really leave me cold. Like I tried to get into like Wicked, for example. Like I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's because Stephen Schwartz is a very different kind of composer. His work is considerably more commercially oriented in the sense that like he is aiming for a commercial palette. I do like Godspell though. I don't know if you've ever listened to Godspell, and I think Pippin's pretty fun too. But.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. Well, not to me, but I mean in the same way that I can acknowledge, Grimes. There is a rigor and a detail, and the complete realization of her own fantastical world. It's just I hate that world and anyone who wants to inhabit it.
It sucks. It's a world that sucks that I want no part of. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and that's what I was going off on my rant of Toronto people, as I am. I'm a Toronto person. We're always bitter at Montreal because they think they're so cool. They think they're so awesome just because they live in a real city.
I'll be honest. I've only been to Montreal once. I had the poutine. It was all right. Then I went up to Mont Tremblant and went skiing and had some fun. But I don't know. I wasn't. A lot of people are like, "Oh my God, Montreal's amazing." I personally prefer Toronto. But then again, I grew up in Michigan, so like
There you go.
I
That's
have more
why.
of the Midwest sensibility about.
Well, yeah, it's what I would say is the big difference is the sense of self-effacement.
Sure.
Your average Toronto band is like Pup is a great example where it's music about being a huge loser. It's music
Right.
about being a huge asshole loser.
Well, there's nothing more Michigan than music about being a huge asshole loser.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
we kind of fucking originated the whole Midwest emo thing.
Oh, yeah.
Are you into that sort of thing at all, or?
I like the American football stuff a lot more than I like the the open tuning like guitar pyrotechnic stuff.
Okay. Or how do you feel about just like stuff that's chords where somebody goes, "I really suck a lot, and I feel like I'm the guy who sucks." Do you like that kind of stuff or not?
Having encountered a lot more emo recently, because I've been playing a lot of music around Toronto, and like every third Toronto band is a screamo band.
Yeah.
My enjoyment of it will largely depend on whether the vocalist is doing the sort of MCR Gerard Way affect where they pronounce heart as "hwart."
Oh,
I can't stand that. Why are you singing like? If they're just screaming like normal screaming, then it's like, oh yeah, I like this. There's a lot of artfulness to this. There's like, I like the idea that it just completely eschews subtlety entirely. I think there's a strong value in that. But yeah, that whole thing of like. That voice, that one voice that's was very popular, more so throughout the 2010s, is not my thing.
Okay, the Gerard Way voice or the Jordan Dreyer voice?
Yeah, but I mean, it's on that spectrum, on that continuity.
That thing.
That one, yeah. And but yeah, Montreal has that thing, and I was also talking smack about New York.
Yeah, and then I said, you got to stop. You got to stop this. I can because this is the thing. I grew up in Michigan, but I've been in New York my entire adult life, and I'm I at this point have lived here for 15 years. I am not going to be leaving, and so you can insult Montreal all you want, but you square up and you start talking shit about New York. We're gonna have to have a conversation about it.
The fucking Knicks, baby. The
Knicks,
goddamn
baby.
Knicks. Yeah.
That was such a fun night too.
Oh my God.
When they won, the entire city, everybody was just running around in the streets. In my neighborhood, there was somebody just running around with an open bottle of champagne, pouring shots into the mouth of anybody who desired it. It's hilarious.
Yeah. That stuff is great. Well, I also, you like the Knicks because it's one of the few ethical New York teams that you can root for.
Depends on what you mean by ethical. James Dolan is not a man you should support.
No. I mean ethical in that just they're an underdog, so it's like, it's not like the Yankees who have this history of winning and they have this incredibly high payroll. So they're naturally thrust into being the villains of their sport.
Well, can I introduce you to a baseball team with a very high payroll that always loses? Because
the Mets,
that's my team.
Yeah. The ethical baseball team to root for.
That's right. Owned by noted extremely ethical man Steve Cohen. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. No. I mean, no sport. All sports are fascist. As a sports fan, I long accepted that.
What are your teams?
I'm a Blue Jays, all Toronto. Because that's how I roll. My NL team is the Padres, who are doing pretty good this year. Love the Tatis recovery. Love
Tatis
Mason Miller.
He's really baller. They played the Mets not too long ago, and they shellacked us. But Tatis was doing some really cool shit. He's such a showman, and I like that.
Yeah. And I was so sad to see Bo Bichette struggling. Our beautiful boy, Bo Bichette, struggling. But he's recovered a little.
Yeah.
It's not a good year for the Mets.
No, I'm going to say Bo, not a great fit for the Metropolitans overall, but nobody's a good fit on this Mets team. Real bad.
Well, you still got Soto, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to want to be there, and I don't blame him.
God, that's the problem with the Mets is that they were only good when they were doing mountains and mountains of cocaine. So I think that needs to come back.
Yeah.
I think we should get rid of all PEDs except for cocaine.
Yes. I think Keith Hernandez would be on board with that as well.
Yeah.
I was at the game, the NLDS game a few years ago when Francisco Lindor hit that grand slam.
Ugh.
That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in any sport ever.
Oh, yeah. No, I had a replication of that feeling when Springer hit the ALCS home run against the Mariners, where it's just like, wow.
Nice.
And then losing the World Series in that heartbreaking fashion was also amazing in its own way.
Yeah.
Because it's weird. You can just arbitrarily get into something and then you just get this unbelievable cortisol shot, like a friend has died.
Think the Dodgers are going to make it 3 in a row?
I think they're having a lot of. I think they are kept down this year by a lot of things. The underperformance of Kyle Tucker, the underperformance of Edwin Diaz,
yes,
the vibe-killing nature of Dalton Rushing. But they have Pages, they have Muncies, who's having a banner season. Of course, they have Ohtani.
Yeah, they have the greatest baseball player of all time. So there's that too.
And
maybe
Freddie
the greatest
Freeman.
athlete of all time. Period.
I think you could argue that Ohtani is, just definitely the greatest baseball player of all time. I don't think there's any baseball follower who's a chart idiot, as I am.
Do you keep score too? Do you bring your own scorebook to games?
I don't bring it. I haven't gotten to that point yet. It might get to that point though.
I have my scorecard from the Lindor Grand Slam game. I've got my book. It's over in the other room. But I got to say, keeping score at games, very fun because you get a little souvenir too.
Oh yeah. I imagine being a Mets fan is somehow less heartbreaking than being a Tigers fan.
Well, okay. No, it's not. Being a Mets fan is worse. And I say that as somebody who sort of grew up in a Tigers family.
You grew up, and not only that, in the Cabrera era.
Yes. And sort of, I left Michigan sort of at the tail end of the Verlander Scherzer era.
Oh, wow.
Which was a real fucking time, you know? Well, the Verlander era, I should say, because Scherzer, of course, moved over to the Nats. And then I believe I was in D.C. when Scherzer was pitching for the Nats, too. And then I was only there for a second because I needed to leave D.C. quickly, I realized, when I was there. You want to talk about cities that suck.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to the capital of the United States of America?
I have been to D.C., actually. I was on a band trip. We did terribly in the band competition.
Okay.
I was 15, but SARS was affecting Toronto at this time. So they gave us the Door Prize Award, which was the Spirit of Washington Award.
So they gave first of all, how can a bunch of Canadians have the Spirit of Washington? I find that upsetting, just on an impulsive level.
I mean, you should ask one Mr. Mark Carney, who did everything. It's impressive to me.
What did he have to do with this?
Well, so trade deals just ended. The trade talks were off between him and Trump, which is fascinating to me. Mark Carney is a guy who's doing everything in his power to normalize trade relationships with America,
right?
Because he's like a modern finance guy whose orthodoxy does not come from Keynesian economics, but rather from the sort of bipartisan consensus of Friedman-style economics that manifested in the 90s. So he's a get money now guy, rip copper wire out of the walls guy, short-term solutions. We're building a pipeline that will take 10 years and will be outmoded in 10 years. This type of thinking, right? And so this is a guy that wants to do everything in his power to make money in the short term. And Trump couldn't even come up with something that was appealing to him.
It's so funny. What I will say, again, just from a purely, tactical perspective, is I think that Carney, he is rhetorically effective. He hides the ball. For sure, in terms of what his own priors are, as all sort of neoliberal politicians tend to do. But there's really something to be said for taking the fight to Trump. And I also think that as regards Trump trade relationships in general, nobody has really been fucked over more aggressively and directly and repeatedly than Canada, just by virtue of the fact that it is the closest trade relationship that the United States has with any other country. And all of it is just repeatedly getting thrown out of the window. And so for him to take this tack right now makes sense. What's going to sort of be the thing that we'll have to see is if he, I don't know, I'm like, are they just going to announce a brand new agreement in 3 days, or is this going to actually be something that goes on for a while? I'll be really interested to see what happens.
Yeah. Who among us can tell? It's always like one day is something and the other is the next, because Trump is perhaps even more senile than Biden ever was at this point. So we have that mercurial policy based on his whims.
Have you personally run into any of the sick freaks in like Alberta who are really on board with the whole MAGA thing? Are there any of those even in like Ontario?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
well,
they know they are there.
My dad is a MAGA Christian.
Is that right?
My dad is a
Okay.
MAGA Catholic, which is really weird. But yeah, they don't really care about the economics less than the fact that they feel affronted by some imagined sneering elitist class.
Yep.
And they have been given permission to be on their worst behavior. And they like that aspect of it.
I was watching a YouTube video yesterday, actually, which was, there's a YouTube channel. I can't remember what it's called. They're clearly Republicans, but like less annoying than usual Republicans. And they go to a whole bunch of different towns and they like talk to people in those towns. And one of the towns that they went to was this bullshit little town in Texas, which is like one of the most conservative towns in the United States by percentage of like who voted for Trump, and there's nothing there. It's a cultural wasteland. And their big thing is that they've got this big open air amphitheater where they do these bullshit country music concerts.
Yeah.
One of the first sort of people who they run into are these guys who are like, oh, you're from New York, huh? Well, we're going to have to go get a rope. And everyone's like, what?
Oh my.
And the reason that I mention this is that at the end of the video, they talk then about how there's going to be this AI data center that's going to be coming into town. And apparently the town has had issues with water and the availability of water. And now this data center is going to be coming into town, and they're hopeful. They're really hopeful that it's going to be able to improve the local economy, and hopefully they won't take too much of the water. And I'm like, you rubes are the dumbest motherfuckers alive. You are so stupid. And it's rare that I have the thing of like, you are getting exactly what you deserve, but I truly feel that in a situation like this.
I mean, honestly, I feel I think it's stupid. There is like a left-wing assumption that maybe it is easier somehow to peel off right-wing people than it is to peel off liberals into the left, which I think is, obviously that's wrong-headed. It's much easier to get a liberal to become a lefty than it is to get a right-wing person. But there is this idea that I have, which I call beekeeper leftist. Did you see the Beekeeper movie?
No, I saw the Bee movie.
B-movie.
Jerry Seinfeld, is the bee a Zionist in this movie?
We talked about that at some length in our episode about it.
Oh, no. But yeah, the Beekeeper was a movie with Jason Statham.
Okay.
Where he plays this retired, ultra-confident international assassin who's staying in the rural home of an elderly lady played by Felicia Rashad.
Okay.
And there's an actual line right at the beginning of the movie. I think this movie is directed by the fella that directed Fury and like the first Suicide Squad movie. David Ayer? So he's sort of this director with these militant bona fides. And one of the lines in this, and he's not just, the Beekeeper is the name of the assassin group, but he also is an apiarist. He also keeps bees. So he lives in this shack, and one of the first lines in the movie is like, "Oh, thank you for putting up with my nonsense, me and my bees." You know, he says. So the action of the movie starts when tech people scam Felicia Rashad, and they take millions of dollars from a charity bank account that she runs, and then she takes her own life in the movie. And the beekeeper, played by Jason Statham,
right,
just it goes apeshit and decides to kill all tech people, kill all the people responsible for this. And that's where and it goes all the way up to the fucking president.
Of course it does.
But I found this amazing because this is a movie that is conceived as this sort of bipartisan anger at elites movie, right? I could see this movie appealing just as much to a right-wing person as it does to a left-wing person. And the crossover is the hatred of tech people, is this and every right-wing person who eventually lives with the data center long enough grows to hate and loathe the data center, and sees the malign effects it has within the community, whether it be water use or the intense pressure put on the electrical grid, or, even pollutants, or the fact that it doesn't, provide the jobs that were promised.
The noise, of course.
Another
big thing. Yeah.
So there is this part of me that thinks that maybe there is a way to get right-wing people on the side of leftism by appealing to a broad anti-tech sentiment. I know this is stupid, but some heart of me feels that, we could capitalize on the vast hatred that people have of, San Francisco weirdos.
I think that most people in general, their politics are a lot more fluid and less specifically defined than just about anything. Like, there is a tendency, I think, to assume a certain coherence that just doesn't exist for most people, because most people don't draw their first principles from anything other than their firsthand experience and then what people around them are saying.
Yeah.
And
keep going, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was reading this article today, which talked about a right-wing couple in New York who voted for Mamdani because they assumed he was Italian because his name ended in I, and also because they thought he was running to the right of Cuomo because he was talking about fiscal stuff. He was talking about money savings, and like Trump did, like Trump talks about saving money. Mamdani was talking about it as well. So this whole thing about like fiscal responsibility, right? Yeah.
Framing things in this, well, we need to make sure that our budget's balanced and that we aren't spending more than we're making, and that we're obviously, this is something that you very literally have to do if you are the mayor of New York City. You are required to balance the budget by city law, but the extent to which you emphasize that, there are some people who are able to win over rhetorically by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little bit of sort of my background is that I have pretty much always been focused on political rhetoric, and rhetoric more than hard economics or whatever. And one of the things that I think a lot of people on the left, and specifically the podcast left, such as it is, don't really understand is that rhetoric in and of itself is a form of power.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are a lot of people who have a tendency to discount the value of pure rhetoric because they don't understand that it is by talking about things that you are able to get people to change their priors, and you are able to accomplish movement purely based on that. It's not a substitute, obviously, for organizing or organizational strength. But I think that a lot of, tell me if this makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that because liberals, especially in the United States and North America more broadly, this is also true in Canada, have a tendency to monopolize the world of sensible sounding political rhetoric that has a leftist bent to it.
Yeah.
And because the left has a stronger tendency to be like, well, you got to always get back to class warfare and fundamental dynamics and stuff like that. They don't understand the way that simple rhetoric and simple political communication can win people over just by hammering people on I feel like I'm losing my thread right now. This is why I can't do a Joe Rogan style podcast.
I honestly, this is I have a lot of thoughts on this because when you're trans, you're constantly thinking, well, how do I advocate for myself so people don't kill me, right? And what people are terming woke one, which is a term that I hate because I think it's also non-descriptive of the major problems of 2016 style political rhetoric. I call it BuzzFeedism.
Sure.
Because to me, the major
That's
problem...
so much more helpful.
Yeah.
That's so much more helpful.
It was a co-option of identity politics, which I think, lots of leftists say, just throw out identity politics. No, you sort of need them, but not in the way that they were manifested in 2016 when it got co-opted by this capitalist overlord and it became this assertion of soft power in online spaces that was ultimately designed to sell you stuff. There was which I think was embodied by BuzzFeed. It's, the top 15 signs that, bisexuals rule. And then, they'd be some native advertising thing selling you some bisexual bumper sticker or something like that. And you saw it applied to all of these things, the feminism or queer rights or something like that. And I think that type of sort of empty identity politics rhetoric really is the thing that ended up creating a big gap between our ability to articulate issues that matter to people. And I think Mamdani, which is why he's getting people excited about electoralism, also Syed as well. There's more so than I've seen from the left in a long time because he's the campaign pointed a way forward. What was the jewel of his campaign? Rent freeze, right?
Yep.
This is an economic policy that everyone understands in 2 words, right? And it's it's the same thing that the right wing for a long time was able to rally around tax cuts, whatever else they get tax. Everyone understands tax cuts. You get more money, which is a far cry also from the way that liberals would articulate their economic policies. The most famous example that I can point to is Kamala Harris saying, you get Pell Grant recovery 3 years after running a small business in a major minority,
majority area. Yeah. And the simplicity of it, the essential simplicity of it obviously wins people. And it also points people toward a matter of policy that is going to meaningfully and immediately improve their lives. And you have something that you can stake it on too. You can evaluate his mayoralty based on, well, did he get the rent freeze through or didn't he? This is also why your average garden variety liberal is not willing to do this kind of messaging. Because if you are clear in your rhetoric in terms of what you're promising, then your outcomes can be clearly evaluated.
Yes.
And there is obviously a tendency among whether you're talking about the American Democrats or the Canadian Liberals, if you present these things that are just broad rhetorical ideas without specific policy underpinnings, then it's impossible to know whether or not you accomplished it. Did Joe Biden restore the soul of America? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, it's also just what Biden did do. To some degree, there was an economic recovery under him, but that was the way that liberals would put it. It was very abstract, and people didn't really see that delivered directly to them in the way that a rent freeze is just immediate, right? People understand immediately how they're saving money, and I think it's because. I've joked about it before, but there is almost this libidinal attraction to incrementalism that liberals have. They're really into edging. They really like political edging. And I think that they hang on to this idea even unsensibly, even to their detriment, because they strongly believe that, well, in order for a democracy to progress, one party cannot make these big strides because you live in a big country where everybody has to have their opinion, have their say. So we need to move slowly so that people get used to this, fearing that any sort of big change in policy will inevitably, have a counter policy.
Right.
And
which is, I guess, true-ish, but it's also really not, because if there's anything that we have seen with how the right works, it's that they understand where the opportunities and inflection points are. And those are the opportunities where you really grab the bull by the horns and fucking do something. Because as long as you are in a state of significant chaos, you can do whatever you want. And it doesn't really matter whether or not it's what people want, so long as you are able to preserve your power.
Yeah. And that's the other interesting thing about, liberals, who are what I see are the problems of Mark Carney as well. And what he's taking advantage of right now, and what people are enamored with right now, is that language of reasonableness, that language of, or producing this language of tact. I mean, where it is this aesthetic of rationality, where they have adopted this sheen that they are the smartest guys in the room, when really they are doing these very short-sighted policies that I believe will inevitably lead to a fascist recapitulation in Canada, because I think you tend to see it rise up when people have less and they're looking for someone to blame, but they can't blame capitalism, so they blame trans or Jews or whatever. And so I think the intense austerity measures that Carney is enacting, coupled with the fact that everyone is accepting them because he talks so well, and it's just relieving to have a guy that is calm and nice and couches his ideas in the language of rationality compared to the orange mango guy.
But didn't Trudeau also do that? Like, that's the thing that I don't really understand. What's the difference here?
That Carney is much more boring and self-evident. He just has the look, he has the look of someone who's responsible, whereas Trudeau has, the look of a feckless fail son,
Right.
But it's the aesthetic of rationality more than it is the actual practice of rationality. This is also, did you see me get in trouble for the chart people?
Are we talking about the spreadsheet people? I know I saw Ben Collins got in trouble with the spreadsheet people. I did see that.
Yeah, no. Oh, I got in trouble a week back because I had made a cartoon about chart for dinner.
Yes. I did see the chart for dinner.
Yeah.
By the way, I should say, I feel like I haven't had the opportunity to say this yet. I've been a big fan of your comic for a very long time. I'm excited. I was very excited that you were like, oh yes, you should. I very gauchely reached out to be like, can I come on your podcast?
It's not gauche. It's not. I love your podcast. Well, I hadn't heard it up till a couple of days ago, but hearing it, and that's no slight against. I just stopped listening to podcasts altogether for some reason. But I might get back into it because they're quite nice. Also, as I was listening to both Ill-Conceived and Worst of All Possible Worlds. The first episode of Worst of All Possible Worlds that I started out with was the Hamilton episode.
Oh, okay.
Which is, Hamilton is this, I reposted my Lin-Manuel Miranda comic about, the fantasy of Lin-Manuel making a rap. So good.
Beautiful caricature of Lin there, by the way. I don't think many people have captured him quite as well as you have in that comic specifically.
In terms of that Justin Trudeau-like fecklessness, fail son fecklessness, he's sort of got it. And you are very charitable to that musical.
I wasn't. My co-hosts were.
But I mean, your co-hosts have the thing where they are like dramaturgy appreciators.
Mhm.
They're like,
especially AJ. AJ, my co-host, is the one who I think appreciates Hamilton the most out of the three of us.
oh yeah, I think if you care for like the craft of a musical, then Hamilton is very impressive.
Yes. It is an impressive show. That is what I would describe it as in a nutshell. And I saw it on Broadway with the original cast, and I was like, this is so well made.
Oh yeah. But to me, I've only heard the soundtrack, and to me, this sounds like a Simpsons bit. This is like
a lot of it
I'm
does.
auditioning for a rap musical about Alexander Hamilton.
That sounds weird, Marge.
Yeah, it was always good. I mean, also like the premise of rapping slave owners is like on its face is just is odd. It's just really strange. And I can't really get over that. To like appreciate. Oh my, the staging is amazing.
The staging is not amazing. The staging is actually deeply frustrating. I'm happy to talk all day about my various issues with Hamilton the musical. It is such a piece. There's a reason that it's become sort of this totemic object of Obama era liberalism. It premiered right at the end of the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a show that was supported in its development by the Obama administration. Famously, Lin-Manuel Miranda had the opportunity to perform one of the numbers when the show was still in its earlier development phase at the White House. And the Obamas introduced their number that they performed at the 2016 Tony Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this thing that represents the dreams and aspirations of Obamaism and Obama-era liberalism, which is, I think, actually, it's not the same as Carney liberalism, obviously.
Yeah.
There's some pretty significant differences there. But I think that Carney liberalism is in a way, a continuation of the Obama ideal. I guess managerial liberalism, if you want to call it that.
Or that appearance of rationality.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if the policies are rational. And there are some Obama policies that, I liked M4A, I liked the Iran deal. It wasn't all complete desolation. But more so than anything, it was still that same thing where there's presiding over this loss of entitlements or these austerity measures that were occurring. Although, I'm hard pressed to think of the major austerities that happened under Obama.
I mean, there kind of weren't real austerities under Obama because the United States just deficit spends its way out of everything and keeps issuing treasuries. Thank you, Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah, there you go.
But so I guess when you go back to a piece of art like that now, if you are somebody whose obsession is political rhetoric and the way that people associate with each other in a political setting, all you can see are the shortcomings, at least for me. And there's also the broader question of some of the music, which I just find abominably cringe.
It's repulsive. Yeah, it's
really good too, but like some of it is. Oof.
Well, it's that thing where it's something that is very technically accomplished, but there is like an odd, uncanny Dorcas quality to it, like Jacob Collier or something like this. Wow, this person is so talented, and this is so emotionally empty. This is so there is like. Have you ever watched someone die, Lin-Manuel Miranda? Have you ever?
I mean, my big contention about him, and I guess, you know what, I'll be mean on a podcast. Why not?
Sure, yeah.
I just think he's an egoist. I think that and I don't think he's necessarily, I don't know. I haven't met him. I don't know if he's a good person or a bad person, but I do know that you can see in all of his work, especially Hamilton, that his primary overarching concern is, do you like me?
Yeah.
And this is also the problem with Hamilton as a show, is that the protagonist, Alexander Hamilton, is both historically and kind of in the show, a real piece of shit. But the show is not willing to lean into him being the piece of shit that he needs to be, because the show wants you to like Hamilton, because Hamilton is portrayed by Lin-Manuel Miranda in the show, and Hamilton is a stand-in for Lin-Manuel Miranda's dad.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, and he's talked about this, how like he's so inspired by the work of his own dad, Luis Miranda, who is a major political operator in New York City, and how he feels that Luis's story reflects the story of Alexander Hamilton. And so he's too compromised in terms of his own standpoint to be able to really make the show that the show needs to be. And so we end up with this thing that's both politically and rhetorically inchoate, but very technically impressive. And I mean, isn't that just the perfect summation of the Obama era writ large?
Yeah. I think it's this, also this, the implementation of the meritocracy, right? The idea that you can study your way out of poverty, right? And this is inspiring story. And it's this constant refrain of elitist values.
Right.
There are elites and they deserve to be in control, as my dad was. When really, usually who goes to the top are not necessarily the people who are best at something, but the people that are able to most exploit the creamy middle. I often, my mean thing is I often think that liberalism is a make work program for the mediocre. It's, it's this thing that where people that aren't, very, have a low depth of feeling and are, talented on a technical level, but not talented on this emotional exploration level will find themselves drawn to.
This also connects with the other big thing that I've been tracking this week specifically, and I'm sure you've also seen, which is the Nathan Kaufness thing. What's
that?
Well, this guy is the pervert who recently actually got suspended from his doctorate position, his doctorate fellowship. He's in the process of getting his PhD at Ghent University in Belgium. The white supremacist guy who was he published something a few weeks ago on his Substack that was accusing Jason Arde, that recently appointed professor at Cambridge, the black professor at Cambridge, of having plagiarized his PhD dissertation back in 2015.
Yeah.
Kaufness has been on the warpath as of late, even after Arde died about a week ago, being like, well, we still need to stand up for our cherished academic values. Please don't look up the fact that I am, in fact, a committed white supremacist, and that I have published a whole lot of work talking about how black people are distinctly genetically inferior to white people, hence why they are measurably less intelligent. And
a guy from Belgium is anti-black? I've never heard
of that. He's American. He's American.
Shit. Oh, and he went to Belgium. He went to the side.
Well, this is what's crazy about this Kaufness guy, right? Yes, he went to Belgium most recently, but this was after he got booted from Cambridge for being too much of a racist in 2024. And so I don't know if they are going to end up booting him from Ghent as well. But he's a huge piece of shit, and he uses the academy as a veneer for his project of white supremacy. And if you actually watch him talk or read his work, it is immediately evident that he is just extremely mediocre. He's got nothing going on. The dude sucks. He also looks like... Let me show you a fucking picture of this guy. You're going to laugh out loud when you see this guy, because he is not the exemplar of superior Aryan DNA. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Bit of a, hey, I'm not a lookist, if you look a certain way, whatever. But if you're arguing that there is some sort of greater physical specimen, Oh yeah, he's a bit of a weenie. He looks like a bit of a weenie, doesn't he? Which is, I'm not the coolest looking person on earth, but geez,
No, you're a cool looking person.
Thank you.
And you're certainly much cooler looking than this fucking guy. Although that's a goddamn low bar to clear.
Yeah. You're cooler looking than Mandark from Dexter's Laboratory. This is. I talk like this.
He kind of does talk like that, is the thing.
I sang the 14 words. We need to, like these opprobrious, disgusting nerds who are like, why does everyone hate me? Why does everyone think I suck?
It's like everybody hates you because you suck. And they build these little networks, these disgusting little mutual appreciation societies where they all suck each other off about how special and smart and cool and fun they all are, despite the fact that they have nothing going on. But because they benefit from the power of these networks, they are able to inflict massive amounts of structural violence on the people that they don't want in their special little clubs.
Yeah. I see this as part and parcel of this sort of language of rationality, or this sheen of rationality, this rhetoric that people are able to master to mask the fact that they're doing something that's not only unremarkable, but destructive as well.
Yeah. And not academically rigorous at all. These are not people who are able to... These are people who are not even really willing to subject themselves to peer review in terms of their key claims about how awesome they are genetically, because they're not borne out by the actual scientific method.
Yeah, I mean, there's an old Patton Oswalt bit, which I, turn around in my head a lot, because I first heard it and I was wondering, do I really agree with this? But it's sort of become more apparent to me, where he's talking about, if there is a guy who says the right thing imperfectly, it's much better than a guy that says the wrong thing, but with like all of the correct jargon.
Yeah.
And he gives an example of like a redneck being like, I don't care if you want to turn your dick into, if you're a man that's like has a puss, I don't care, whatever, and even though that person is expressing, and I'm doing the redneck voice because, I think he does the redneck voice as well in the bit. But then he talks about someone who's more erudite and it's like, well, I understand that gender dysphoria has been located, but I believe that it is against the moral stance that we have erected in order to develop an economically viable, where they couch these sort of nasty fascist ideologies within this measured language and this rationalist sounding rhetoric. It's not about being rational, it's about sounding rational.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of where you enter the chart people or the spreadsheet people, where the spreadsheets automatically give a sheen of rationality to whatever you're asserting, right? Even if what you're asserting is monstrous.
Can we talk about spreadsheet people discourse for a moment? Just because
let's talk about it.
I was genuinely floored at how that shit all went down, because immediately when I saw your comic about the chart perverts and Ben's post about the spreadsheet people, I immediately intuited what the thing was. But there were so many aggrieved little weenies who immediately had to take to their posting stations to be like, wow, why would you say that about me? I work so hard, and spreadsheets are actually really important. And why are you devaluing the importance of data modeling? Like, what? Were they doing this in good faith, do you think? Do you think they knew what was going on, or do you think they were playing a sick little game? Or do you think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B?
I think they're doing it in good faith. I think someone like Will Stansel genuinely believes he's doing good. And I think he thinks he's found the key to the most rational type
Sure.
of rational type of information gathering. But I mean,
I've had that guy blocked for a while because honestly, as soon as that man enters that man is a one-man cognito hazard. And I can appreciate some of the discourse. I can appreciate the insanity of the discourse that he generates. I think he's clearly a very powerful poster. And so game respect game on that level, it's just not something I want any part of personally.
He's accused me of being anti-Semitic, despite me being a Jew and him being a Gentile. Because I had a post one time about...
Yes!
Yeah, it works. I said, Israeli kid watching Star Wars Episode 1 for the first time and crying because before Watto, he had never seen anyone like him on screen.
That's pretty funny.
And,
you know... Jeremy Kaplowitz has a good bit about that,
gross.
too.
I've said but even before October 7th, I was saying wild shit. My favorite my favorite joke that I've ever written is... the goblins in Harry Potter aren't supposed to be Jews. I bet you think the goblins in Fiddler on the Roof are Jews too. And, they didn't dig up that post to show my anti-Semitism.
On the topic of great musicals, by the way, both a great musical and a great movie musical.
I love Fiddler on the Roof. Oh my God, so much I love Fiddler on the Roof. The fact that, do you understand how hard it is to end your first act with a pogrom and for it to not seem like weird or pandering or cheesy?
No, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay, but this goes back to the Hamilton thing again, where it's like the reason that works so fucking well is that every bit of it is earned and is coming from a sound dramaturgical place. It's not doing it because it's what the show needs you to feel in a given moment. It's because A, what is a matter of historical record, and B, what makes sense for these characters at this time.
Tradition.
Yeah, it's really good. But also directed by Norman Jewison, shockingly not Jewish. He's on my list of I have a list of people that are surprisingly not Jews.
Okay.
Jason Biggs, Weird Al Yankovic,
right?
Norman Jewison, Rachel Sennett. Who are why? Sometimes people are just Jewish. They just got the vibe. I think also that calling me anti-Semitic or trying to wield this identity category, in this overtly capitalistic BuzzFeedy way, or trying to say that you are the Semitophile or whatever. You're the one who is very anti-racist because you wouldn't make a gross joke. You are so anti-Semitism that you will reprimand Jews who make gross dumb jokes about Jews, as we have done since time immemorial. You'll say that's wrong, And
I also noticed that Haley Stevens was doing a lot of this when she was running for Senate in Michigan. I don't know how closely you followed that, but she was the one who ended up developing this very strange little voice that she did, which is how everybody from Michigan talks.
Yeah.
But regularly calling people out for being an anti-Semite, becoming the voice, I guess, of what ought to and ought not be considered anti-Semitic. My thesis about all of this is that, yes, it of course is Zionism, and it's the effects of American Zionism on the body politic, but it's also specifically Christian Zionism and the way that the Zionist project has aligned itself with some of America's worst evangelical Christians.
Oh, yeah.
And so that horrible fusion of power means that how you develop credibility then is your alignment with this institution, or these institutions more broadly, whether you are talking about non-government actors like like the ADL, or of course government actors like the state of Israel itself. Those things matter more than anything else.
Yeah. And when people talk about rising anti-Semitism as well, I obviously with the Fuentes people, yes, it's become much more of a thing that they turn on in order to gain some sort of political clout. But in the broader sense of, when we think about, racism, we think about it institutionally, right? So to me, the bigger question is, have any Jewish institutions been significantly diminished in their power or ability to exercise political control? No, obviously not. What are you talking about?
The anti-Zionist ones have.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
If we're being honest,
But yeah, they don't care about those ones, I mean, there also is there are very little, I would say, institutional anti-Zionist groups out there.
Right.
It's a lot of
how could something be institutional if it is anti-institution?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a moment in your life where you were down and out and you thought religion maybe. I had this.
No, speaking as somebody who grew up in it, no.
Well, there was, also prior to October 7th, when I still had, this sense of some sense of pride in Judaism, even though I know prior to October 7th, there were just as many, murders and but there was some sense of, it's drenched in mysticism. There is this connection to my ancestors. Maybe I'll try and go to a synagogue, right? And there are no anti-Zionist synagogues, at least in Toronto. It's very difficult to find them. And it's very disheartening that a way to practice your faith, or at least a version of it that you would understand, is married to this untenable and people balk at the terms good and evil. I'll say it's evil political ideology. So that was ruined for me. I find that the provision of Zionism in any form is indeed anti-Semitic because, and also, the crowing about rising anti-Semitism is also further ends up propelling it because you are continuing to associate the fate of all Jews with the fate of Israel, right? And for the first time in history, Israel has given a legitimate reason for people to be wary of Jewish people writ large, because the majority of us still support it. And what can we do?
There's this thing that's uniquely frustrating for me too about how, like you said, it gives this increased license for people to hold honest to goodness anti-Semitic viewpoints about the world. And that's morally abhorrent, of course. But the lines must, the natural consequence of staking the idea of Judaism on the idea of a nation state that must displace people is that you are then therefore attributing a certain moral valence to the people and to the religion. That is unfair, in my opinion. But if you don't understand, there are so many different layers to this thing, particularly if you're coming at it from an outside perspective. And if you don't know what all those different layers are, and you don't understand that there are so many Jews who strongly oppose the entire thing from top to bottom, you're just going to be like, oh yeah, these people suck. And that's the situation, I think, that Zionists have now placed Jews in. It pisses me off.
Well, it's also because they know that these terrible conspiracy theories exist.
Right.
And they know that people are unwilling to play that to their advantage, because if you say the stuff they're actually doing, whether it be the cum extraction or whether it be the white phosphorus or the culture of corrective rape or the intense focus on sexual assault, or leading into your other podcast, ill-conceived, the bizarre bioessentialist natalism.
Well, the cum retrieval unit is part of that.
Yeah.
That's a huge piece of what's going on over there. We haven't done an episode about Israel yet. We will at some point this season, because this is our season of like international comparatives.
Oh yeah.
And I think we might specifically do an episode about the IDF, because it's maybe the best example of the bioessentialism that the state of Israel practices. But yeah, it doesn't. This is the other thing too. It aligns with white supremacy. Like, honest to goodness, old line white supremacy. Fucking actual Nazis, the people who we have also been tracking on the show for a while, are so obsessed with this idea that Ashkenazi Jews have this inherently higher biological potential than everybody else.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is because they are to be feared. They are to be feared as the one group. This is the other thing. When they do their little breakdown, which they love to do, of all of the races and ethnicities and which ones have the highest biological potential, whites are on top, except that Ashkenazi Jews are a little bit higher.
Yeah, no, well, we're supposed to be a competing, I mean, there was sort of that, it goes all the way back to Hitler, where they were this competing master race, which is why we must be eliminated, right?
Yes.
And there's a certain type of Jewish Zionist that has internalized this idea that, Mandelbaum. And I was listening to your Quiverful episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is like a very good microcosm of, I think, what people like J.D. Vance and Elon Musk want to do to society. And you know where Quiverful got their ideas from, right?
Was it the state of Israel?
It was Haredi Jewish settlers in the West Bank.
That makes sense.
Because,
I lived for a little while, a couple of years actually, in Borough Park, which is a neighborhood of Brooklyn that is almost entirely Haredi and Hasidic Jews.
Mm-hmm. And
I was the Shabbos goy. I was hanging out. I don't know that I ever actually flipped a light switch for somebody, but you want to talk about like an entirely different world. Holy cow.
No, I lived in Brooklyn for 1 year, and it was terrible. I had bed bugs the entire time.
Where in Brooklyn?
Bushwick. In 2012.
I also got bed bugs in Bushwick, so solidarity.
And there's also like a issue with it too, where now it's like fully gentrified, so there's less of that guilt that you are the encroaching force because well, it's already happened, They already got Roberta's as an institution now. It
is.
But while I'm there, it's just like this great sense that even living wretchedly as I am, I'm the problem. I am the big. So it was this psychic terror of understanding just my mere presence in this neighborhood is ultimately a disservice to the people that have been living here for a long time. Plus the fact that I'm living wretchedly. So,
I am myself the wretch.
Yes, I am the wretch. And I lived on Locust Street, which is just a perfect right next to the J stop where the Popeyes and the is.
I know exactly where it is. Yeah.
And
many weird nights there.
Oh yeah. You just feel like a bridge troll. You're just underneath the subway the entire time. It was great. Where was I going with it?
I don't know, but for what it's worth, I also lived off the J train for a little while, and I was also right on Broadway. And our apartment had really well insulated windows, thankfully. So I actually found the sound of the train rolling by to be very soothing. But I like trains, so.
Oh yeah, no. If you're far away enough from it, there is that gentle.
Oh no, I was
quality.
right on the track.
That's pretty good. So you like trains that much?
I love trains.
Oh my God. Well, I'm not gonna make the obvious joke. I'm not gonna make obvious joke.
Don't dare do it.
I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, I want to talk more about ill-conceived
Yes.
too, because what you and June Sternbach from the Onion lady,
Yes.
why did you start this podcast? This mounting fear, or what was it?
Yeah, well, so June wrote something this was maybe a year and a half ago. Just sort of drafted up this big thing because she'd had a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts about the way that natalism is one of the things that helps explain Trumpism. And I helped edit it. She had done a draft, and I was like, hey, let me take a look at this. Helped clean it up a bit and sharpen some of it. And, our process of collaborating on that made me be like, I think we're not only are we aligned on like what's going on here, but it seems like we work pretty well together. Like our strengths complement really well. Because I think June is really good at noticing things and drawing connections where a lot of other people wouldn't. My strengths are mostly in the world of editing and, being a dork ass nerd. And so I think it was like a week or so after that I just sent her a text and I was like, this was really cool. What if we just did a show about it?
Yeah.
And that is what happened. At first, we weren't really sure what the show would be. It's really funny looking back on it now because the idea when we first started was that this would just be a half hour a week. The show is not that. It is anywhere usually between 80 to 120 minutes every other week. It was just going to be like, oh, here's an article that we read this week. Here's something we saw this week, and let's just talk about it for a little while. But because we are both sickos, and because we both really like doing research, it ended up becoming instead this thing where we swap off every other week, usually, and research a component or key figure or institution that is somehow connected to natalism, usually in the United States. Although, again, in this season, we're doing more international comparatives. And we've been doing it now for just over a year, and it's been going really well so far. I have been shocked, genuinely shocked at a lot of the stuff that I have learned. And I've also been surprised at how well connected these people are. And I shouldn't be surprised, and yet I somehow still am. I'm always surprised when I start pulling on a little thread where it's like, I wonder where this goes. And then you discover that, for instance, the same organization that was connected historically to the publication of the book The Bell Curve by Charles Murray and Richard Herdenstein, that organization's DNA has now carried down into the organization that I was talking about a little bit earlier that's affiliated with that Nathan Kaufness guy that drove Jason Arde to fucking kill himself.
Yeah.
Same people.
To draw some connections between Grimes and Elon Musk and all this. The sort of disgust that I have towards Grimes's music, even on the outside, is sort of a disgust in general I have towards a genre of music I call lol so epic. Where it is this obsession with creating this version of yourself that is large and everlasting, right? This intense fear of death. To me, the idea of heaven was terrifying. The idea that you live in this sort of static, it's why religion ultimately never, or at least Christianity never appealed to me, because the idea of like the static thing where you don't change and it's just forever and you don't change is, to me, like antithetical to everything that is interesting about being alive or interesting about having a personality or a self. Or
Stephen Sondheim has a whole musical about that. It's called Company.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And to me, this is also the thing that animates my dad's MAGA Catholicism as well, is this intense fear of death. Often when I talk to him and he tells me, about his greatest disappointment in my transit is because I'm not going to have kids, or I'm not, specifically biological children is imperative to him, which also animated his intense desire to have children too, which is the idea that you're participating in this legacy. And even after you die, there will be some part of you that is everlasting, right?
So you have no intention of having kids?
I would like to. I can't afford them. That's the thing. Is I was just priced out of the. Ideally, I'm 37 and just getting back into dating since transitioning. So if I end up with some divorcee who's got like a kid, and I think that would be ideal scenario. Sure. Maybe adopt if I have the cash to do so. But yeah, I'm baby crazy. I love kids. I think they're great.
Part of the reason I ask is that this is something that I notice about the natalists in general, is that they have this part of their abiding fear and distaste for trans people is this idea of like, well, trans people don't want to have kids, which in my experience is sometimes true. And it might be true that trans people are less likely to want to have kids than cis people. But in my experience, it's certainly not true either to say that trans people as a group don't want kids. That's just not. Oh, yeah. It's just it's more complicated, but it's not true to say that is. Yeah.
I think a lot of the trans people you see online are young people. Yeah. And like me, they've just been priced out of having kids, which is why they don't want to have kids. It's not antinatalism because they have some sort of moral axiomatic desire towards antinatalism, but more just so the world will not support my ability to raise a child such that the child is not traumatized by financial instability.
Exactly. And this is also the case for cis people. And this is one of the reasons that we have seen fertility rates decline, They don't want to grapple with those big picture implications, though, because they're more concerned about whatever their project is, whether it is getting women back out of the workplace or, whatever.
Yeah. And to me, I think there is a shift in the reason why, or the healthiest way to raise a child, which I don't know. I shouldn't talk about raising children because I know nothing about it. But that whole you are continuing my legacy idea is you're going to inevitably, some kids go along with that. I'm the fifth pizza maker in my family going all the way back to Napoli.
My father, John Pizza. And his grandfather, Jonathan Pizza, and his great-great-grandfather, Johannes Pizza.
Yeah, we come from Pizzaburg in Bavaria. But yeah, that idea that what your child represents is an extension of yourself, I think inevitably leads to resentment and bad parenting. Whereas if the goal is to create something new, or it's put beautifully in the Matrix Revolutions, the program that breaks the Matrix is this anomalous entity born of love, And
I think that this is a generational shift, actually, that has specifically happened with millennials and is also now moving down toward Gen Z. And tell me if you think I'm way off base on this, because this is mostly vibes. I'm not basing this on any real data, but I think a piece of it is that millennials were by and large told that we could go and, do whatever we want to do and be whoever we want to be. But at the same time, we're still subject, obviously, to the pressures of whatever it was that our family was and has been. And of course, then the entire nature of the economy fell out from underneath us. And so I think a lot of us realized that the promise of self-actualization in a labor economy wasn't really possible unless you already had pretty significant pre-existing resources. And we're also able to see that things are becoming more and more untenuous as we move toward this climate unstable, a future destabilized by a deteriorating climate. And so we want to provide for our potential children as much stability as is possible. And I don't think that stability is something that the generations before us considered in the same way, because I think the generations before us just assumed that things would get better.
Yeah. It's once again, it's that idea of everlasting. This will continue on forever. This will last forever. You know? It's funny how you even see it in the Kyle Gordon parody of millennial music, where it's like, I'm never gonna die, never gonna die. And that attitude was completely dashed, right? I also think you hear it in Grimes music, or that desire. There is a thread in the trans community, which I totally get. And I don't want to talk ill of it, because I understand that the difficulty one would have with their body. But you want to go into the computer. You want to be free of your meat prison, and you want to exist forever in the computer, as, you know, your energy spirit, or whatever. And there's a thread of that in certainly the later overtly techno-fascist music of Grimes. But I think I hear it in the earlier music too, where it's about attempting to remove the imperfections of humanity by leaning into the artificiality of electronically generated DAW music. And I think that's sort of a general trend in music, the abdication of the organic, because I think it isn't just like weird billionaires that are trying to do the eternal everlasting youth thing. I think this idea has become this broad mainstream thing.
What do you think about hyperpop?
It depends on the artist, you know.
Right. We all love Sophie, obviously.
I don't, actually.
Really?
I fucking hate Sophie.
All of it?
Oh yeah, I think it's garbage.
Oh, I so strongly disagree.
I understand why people like it, because it's detailed, it's like deeply idiosyncratic. No one was doing it like her. But to me, it is something that takes the traditions of musique concrète and the traditions of industrial music and experimental music, and then makes it okay to attach an aspirational wealth aesthetic to it. Because she also lampshades it in Face Shopping. We know this is bad, but we like doing it anyway, so it's fine. But it's still, you know, this version of something that has this organic base, but made such that it can sell, you know, Gucci and high fashion stuff. To me, I think
that's interesting. I disagree.
No, it's fine to disagree.
And I'm sure I'm not the first person to disagree with you on this. Because I think that this is a problem that I have with some hyperpop, but not with Sophie specifically, because I think it is self-aware enough about what it is that it is doing that it doesn't get so subsumed in the aesthetic. I think that I don't actually like all of her stuff. I think some of the singles are, especially the earlier stuff, some of it's just annoying for the sake of being annoying, honestly. And, you know, respect, I get it. But I think that when it does get into the really earnest stuff, like It's Okay to Cry, for instance.
Oh, I hate that song.
Is that right? Really?
Like I'm making the jacking off motion.
Disagree.
You know, I find it patronizing.
Really?
Yeah, no, I find it gross and patronizing. I just also hate the timbres of the stuff she uses in that song. It's like, it sounds like a fucking anime nightmare.
It hits your ear wrong.
Oh yeah, it hits my ear wrong, but it's also just like, you know, it's okay to cry. You know, I don't like her voice. It sounds like one of the Gumbies from Monty Python. You know, it's like fucking, you know, no, this is stupid. This is, you know, like have a song about, to me, like, this is a far cry from something that I say, Come Back to Me by X, which is this song about Exene Cervenka's sister dying. To me, the way, the space of it, and the way that it carries and the way that it revels in the breaks in her voice, to me, that is the emotion. Sure. To me, Sophie is this artificial gesture towards this emotion. It is this shorthand for emotion, but it never actually gets there.
I disagree. I think that it's just the way that she specifically expresses it, and that's just something that you personally find to not align with your own manner of expression.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think it's fair to say that it is inherently artificial. I think that the line between artificiality and authenticity is something that she's attempting to explore. And for whatever reason, for me, it works. Obviously, for you, it doesn't. I am curious other examples though of like stuff that you think really does hit when you're talking about like expressing oneself emotionally in those difficult ways through music.
Oh, D'Angelo, Black Messiah, Nick Drake, Pink Moon, Nina Simone, people that have an intensity and where the point of the music isn't this sort of detachment. There is like, I value intensity a lot, and I value this extreme focus, and more than anything else, I value anger.
Do you like Oingo Boingo?
It's okay. It's.
Do you like Devo?
Yeah, I like Devo, but
Okay.
There is a detachment with Devo. But
Yeah.
I like their first album more than any of their other albums because it's the
too.
one with the fewest synths on it. It's
Yeah.
the one where, and it's also, there is this, I think this emotional quality, the sense of injustice, of American life, whether it be Jocko Homo, or it's like, I always give this example in Frank Zappa, who I like. I understand, I say I don't like Sophie, and I say I like Frank Zappa, shoot me in the head.
I was gonna say, come on.
No, but Frank Zappa's later stuff, I think definitely descends into this detachment where there's this, I'm, making this a political satire. But I think you get into his early stuff, We're Only in It for the Money. It's a deeply emotional record. It's this sadness that hippiedom and counterculture had been manipulated by mass culture to essentially keep people stupid and keep people oppressed. I think of the song Mom and Dad, which Frank Zappa wrote the most beautiful line. I cry when I think about it, which is, ever tell your kids you're glad that they can think, right? That's an amazing, beautiful, astonishing emotional line. And it comes from fucking Frank Zappa. And to me, that is the sort of the lack of focus on that injustice of living as somebody that is capable of thought and feeling. When you're affronted with a world of people who are trying to use that language of rationality, who are trying to use that carny language, who are trying to use that, overtly technical rapping style that Lin-Manuel Miranda uses in Hamilton in order to give a sheen of rationality. The rhymes are so clever that you don't even notice that there is this very bland, emotionless quality to it, other than the lol so epic, awe-inspiring quality of having our big dick American Revolution. There actually is this dearth of, feeling.
Lin-Manuel Miranda definitely is epic. That is one characteristic that he and Grimes have in common, is that they're both extremely epic.
Yeah, and anytime I hear lol so epic music like that, I'm like, you're lying to me. You are lying. Do
you think that Devo is also epic?
I don't know. The arrangements are pretty spare.
Yeah.
So I would say they sort of avoid that. I think the
okay.
The
So you're saying LOL so epic right now. You are talking purely about from a production perspective.
Yeah.
That things are like big. They're full. They're going up. And they sort of have the sense of like you are being sonically overwhelmed.
But also like the desire to be ensconced in a fantasy as well.
Sure.
Where I think with Devo, there is very much this Brechtian like breaking of that fantasy concept.
I mean, I can certainly understand why you hate Sophie then, because that's like aesthetically kind of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
It's trying to be big. It's trying to overwhelm you. And
this is how I met very much at odds with the queer community, because the queer community is all about this, the fantasy, and it's like
for me it really depends. I guess like there are times where I really enjoy something that is super big and super heightened. I would say though, I have a bit of an instinctual, not revulsion, but I do tend to like when I'm hit with something that is trying to make me feel a certain way. Usually I'm like, stop trying to make me feel. I don't like that. I don't like being manipulated. And but you're right that like, what about video games? Do you play much like video games really?
I lost my taste for them just because I work too much now to ever complete one, and but I do see this thread in, a lot of the music that I have this revulsion to is very much inspired by video game music.
Sure.
And the quality of it. But, it's hard for me to detach myself from loving the Nobuo Uematsu soundtracks to the Final Fantasies,
They're great.
But it's interesting. A quality occurs when I talk about organics or something that sounds organic. There's something that is more organic about the PS1 synthesizers that he's using than you hear on those souped up orchestral
on the
remixed
remix
versions.
Yeah, absolutely.
For some reason, there is something more artificial sounding about the real instruments and the way that they are produced, because it has that big epic swelling sense. It lacks that intimacy of the original PS1 stuff.
I also feel similarly about the visuals in a lot of cases when you're talking about something that is a remake. I haven't played too much of the Final Fantasy VII remakes, but and they're cool. Mm-hmm. It's just a different game. It's just fundamentally a different thing. I enjoy a lot of the stuff from the like Super Nintendo to PS2 era, because so much of that is that it is working within the limitations of the medium. And I think that might be the thing that you're sort of intuiting is like, you don't have limitations anymore on really anything when you're talking about music, when you're talking about video games, whatever. And so you have pretty much everything at your disposal that you could ever possibly want. But some of the most interesting art is stuff that you get when a creator is subject to technical limitations and has to work their way around those limitations.
Yeah. I mean, it's why Frank Zappa was better with the Mothers of Invention, because they couldn't play everything. So he had to work with them, and thus it sounds more specific and directed. I think, obviously this doesn't hold true for everything. I think somebody who's been given free. It's like when the Brewers guy went to the Mets and he was given all the money in the world and he couldn't do.
It is. It's like when anybody signs with the Mets.
Yes,
it genuinely is like that. Now you have all the money and nobody wants to work anymore.
Yeah. But yeah. And if like, what do you like about Sophie? I should say. Let's make it all about Sophie.
So I think that there is a reason that so many people have sort of tried to copy what she does. I will say, in terms of like hyperpop that I don't like A.G. Cook, because I think that A.G. Cook is taking everything that Sophie did. And I mean, I'm not saying this is, I don't know him as a person or whatever. He is a Nepo baby. It should be noted. His father is one of the most wealthy and successful architects to ever do it. But I find that his music, to me, is the thing that you experience when you hear Sophie's music, which is, this is a big aesthetic. You are creating these sounds with the intention of just presenting this, I keep using the word aesthetic, like that the aesthetic is all that there is there.
Yeah.
Is what I would say. I don't get anything deeper or anything more emotional. Like, you might find Sophie cloying, and I think that's completely fair, but nor can you deny that what she is doing there is coming from a genuine place. This is the music that she really wants to make.
Yeah.
Whereas with A.G. Cook and a lot of the other like PC music stuff, I get the feeling of, oh, you thought this sound was interesting and you wanted to do your own version of it because it is the thing that you thought could make you successful.
Yeah. It's hard to divine authenticity.
And that's the thing. Authenticity is a tough word too, because I'm not saying that he's not an authentic artist or musician. He is. Clearly he is. You're not going to do that much if you're not really going for it. But this also sort of comes back to the thing we were talking about earlier, the Montreal/New York thing, which is, what is it to be a real artist, you know?
Well, authenticity is sort of the name of the game. And going back to Ill-Conceived, I was also listening to the Tradwives episode. And I think that idea, the expansiveness of everything, and the fact that there are no limits on what you can do, creates this sort of like cosmic choice blindness and this terror.
Yeah.
Because if you can do everything, what the fuck do I do? So people find themselves going back to the past. They find themselves wanting a simpler life where you could go to a bar and dance, and I think that is the appeal of tradwifery a lot.
Yes.
Because
June broke down tradwifery really, really well in that episode, and sort of how she categorized the different types of tradwifery.
Yeah.
That like you've got your sort of the true trads.
The true trads, yeah.
Which are the ones who genuinely just want to be
I just
a
like
wife.
Gingham. Gingham fucking rules.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I want to be a wife.
Yeah.
And have that sort of be my thing.
Another Bill Burr thing. Yeah, you're off the grid. It's incredible.
And then of course you've got your like aesthetic trad, the ones who are doing it for social media clout, basically. And then your political trads, the ones where the aesthetic is ultimately subsumed by the political ideology of patriarchy, and it finds its visualization as a physical and visual representation of the political project of patriarchy.
I thought that was all very interesting, because there is that thing where, I mean, you sort of see that in the arc of someone like Sophie, where someone is doing something because they just genuinely like a thing, or they're drawn to an aesthetic for these reasons that are difficult to articulate, but they more so you just like the look of something, right? And then you have the people that ascribe a political identity to that aesthetic, or an identity of good taste or social standing to that aesthetic. And what was the third type again? Where it was the
political ones, or you were saying the political ones, the social media ones, the clout
social media, and then you have the ones that are just purely use the aesthetic as a means for capitalist enrichment,
right?
And I think you'd see that with someone like Sophie, where you have this person who she's doing this art that is singular to her. She gets in a position where this art signifies good taste. And so other people start doing it in order to use it as a shorthand for an ideology. And then that further gets sort of dumbed down into this thing that's exclusively used as a boon in the attention economy. Where it is unmoored from ideology, but rather represents this sort of postmodern, dare I say, fascist implementation, where we like it power for power's sake,
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, there's no city that does that kind of shit better than New York. And I think that when you talk about hating New York, that's the thing that you're mostly intuiting is the tendency of like cultural capital here in a way that happens in no other city in the world, including LA. To sort of center itself, to find scenes where people are creating stuff, and then be like, okay, this is something that we can use not just as a way of making money, but as a aesthetic that can ultimately supplant art at all. Like Dime Square in big old air quotes being sort of the knee plus ultra of this.
I mean, you saw it with like a Vice magazine in Williamsburg, right? Where you have people that move to a place because...
And I was there. I was fucking there. Yes.
You have a bunch of artists who are moving to a place because it's what they can afford. Or before that, it was the Lower East Side. And then it went
or
to
what
Bushwick.
Girls did to Bushwick. Same thing.
And then those people go there and they create some sort of culture that they're drawn to. And then, the artists move in, then the yupsters, the hippie yupsters move in, who have where they're attracted to this aesthetic, but they still, participate in this culture of money, or this upper middle class culture. And then you have the institutionalization of that in something like Vice, which, of the big irony of Vice is that it destroyed Death by Audio, the premier music venue that was in the area at that time for weirdo experimental music. And that sort of supplanting of this thing that smacks of authenticity, or whatever authenticity is. It has that, the Potter Stewart, and I know it when I see it, right?
Yeah, authenticity is a weird thing too, just as a concept, because what even is authenticity? You want to talk about things that millennials fetishize, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not even convinced that authenticity is a real thing.
Yeah, but it's something that you, in the same way that the liberals use the feeling of rationality, people can ascribe the feeling of authenticity, which is stomp clap.
Really good point.
Yeah.
And I guess I hadn't really thought about it that way, that it is authenticity, in big ol' air quotes, is also a form of capital that you can trade on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
like, there's a reason that I reflexively say I was there, like as cringe as it is, right?
LCD
it's like,
sound system.
I want you to know that I come by it honestly.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about Mamdani is he sort of mastered the authentic.
Yes.
Like, how does something feel authentic? You know.
Well, and you know who his chief comms guy is, the one who does all the videos, is Donald Bornstein.
Yeah.
And they fucking also came up in this world. And to the point of another, like, they were their person. Donald was the one documenting with cameras that night that Chapo Trap House did the election night live show where Hillary lost.
Oh yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah,
and that video is a seminal, you want to talk about, like, I don't know, dirtbag left media or whatever. That is a seminal work, a
perfect document. What's the quote? I'm actually laughing right now.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That complete. I mean, that's what you get into with dirtbag love, which is like an outdated term at this point. Of course. You know, like what can we? I love Chapo Trap House. If I still listen to podcasts, I would probably still be listening to it. I mean, that's what they represented to me, was this. I had tried to participate in left-wing spaces before, but I felt intimidated by theory readers and people that had this very stoic version of it, because they really felt the cause and they were really ennobled by it. So I was looking for something that felt a little more, a little more jocular, a little more, something where you didn't have to necessarily appeal to these theoretical ideas, and you could experience these politics in a more naturalistic, dare I say it, authentic setting. And that's what they represented to me. I think that is something that is broadly appealing to people. I think maybe focusing on that, everyone knows you're not authentic, right? It's my favorite joke in the world, which is, I first heard from Richard Jenny, which is honesty. If you can fake that, you're in.
Yeah.
And but
that's actually true, though.
Yeah. No, I do think, of course, with politics, you're never saying what you actually mean. Like, I'm sure Mamdani is significantly more pro-Palestine than he lets on, but he's playing that game. He's got a.
You have to. It's the most Zionist city in the United States, at least in terms of like where the major centers and organizations that support that power structure reside.
Yeah, but in terms of threading that needle of still holding to the anti-Zionist rhetoric that he has, while also, not pissing off the Jewish constituents of the city. Right. I think he's doing a pretty good job of that. But, when he releases a video where he's talking about we can't arrest Netanyahu, he is somehow able to evince that honesty. I think that was also something Obama was really good at doing. Yes. That other people who, in his stead, who have tried to match his tone of liberal rationality, they have failed to act in that way that makes people feel as if they're telling the truth. The pretenders like Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris to some degree, where they have mastered the rational tone, but they haven't mastered that sort of emotional tone that Obama was able to evince.
And I would say I'm, broadly speaking, pretty happy with Mamdani as mayor so far. Living here, I will say that since he became mayor, I mean, not like right since, but really in the past 3 or so months, which is like, because he became mayor at the beginning of the year, on the first of the year. And with any administration, any bureaucracy in general, when a new leader takes over, it takes a while for the bureaucracy to really start reflecting the priorities of the new leadership. I have really noticed over the course of the past like 2-3 months that the government seems to be considerably more responsive and proactive. Most obvious thing, and everybody talks about this, but like they're actually finally paving the streets. The Parks Department are actually they are doing more to maintain the parks. I think that I don't. After having lived here for the entirety of Eric Adams' mayoralty, where nothing ever got done, it's really remarkable to see a city bureaucracy that is responsive again, in a way that it really kind of hasn't been since the Bloomberg era. And to be clear, this is not praise of Michael Bloomberg, because I think that although city government was responsive under him, it was responsive to the wrong people. Whereas now it does seem to be more responsive to the common man. With that said, I am kind of taking the medium term approach of like, with some of these promises and some of these ideas, I will believe it when I see it. He's clearly excellent at the art of rhetoric, and a great example of that is the rent freeze stuff, where he was able to say, we are going to freeze the rent on rent stabilized units for the next couple of years. But that's just generally kind of something that the mayor can do if they want. It doesn't really matter who the mayor is. As long as they are able to appoint the right people to the rent stabilization board, they can get them to do that. Now, admittedly, doing that in an economy right now where fixed costs for everybody are going up and privileging renters over landlords, that is not something that most mayors would do. And so I give him credit for it, but at the same time, it is something that is logistically not as difficult as some of the other stuff that he wants to do. And so I'll be very interested to see if he's able to pull off some of these more difficult objectives. The buses especially are going to be a big thing. It seems like he's already backed off of he's backing away from the idea of making the buses free at point of use, and instead is prioritizing making the buses better and more efficient. From my perspective, that's still a win. Because the revenue that comes in on buses is useful money. And the biggest issue with the buses isn't that they're not free, it's that they aren't reliable.
Yeah, and just having dedicated bus lanes or something like that. Because when I lived in New York,
enforcing the bus lanes, because we have them, it's just that they're not really enforced very well.
Yeah, no, because when I lived in New York, you take the bus as a last resort almost.
That's right.
You try and get everywhere by subway and walking because the buses are just they're not. Right. It's difficult to rely on them. There is the hope that this is a lot of second term stuff. Like he's got to lay the groundwork and get very popular first. And then once he's engendered himself to the public, that's when the radical stuff starts happening.
That's when he will finally take on the NYPD. That's the hope. It's the genuine hope. But like Bill de Blasio made the mistake of trying to, take on the NYPD earlier on in his term, and they threatened to kill his daughter.
Yeah, it's
literally.
Hard. Yeah,
I don't know if you remember that.
No, I do remember that. You're dealing with a fascist military sector,
Right.
And I mean, some people might balk at that, but NYPD is crazy. Every police department has that brotherhood of malice.
But there's also the worry of, as the mayor of New York City, this is still on some level effectively his force. And there may be the temptation when you're in power to be like, well, they're my guys now. My gut, I don't think that's the direction he'll go in, but it is a direction he could go in.
Yeah.
It's something I don't like being a fan of politicians,
Yeah. No,
it's really fucking important to see what they're actually doing and not just what they're saying. Absolutely.
But Mamdani, without trying to, fangirl out too much, because he does seem like an example of, even if he is playing the game of electoralism, and I don't think electoralism is like, we're not going to get what we want solely through electoralism, right? But unlike a lot of other leftists who are very electoralism negative, I think, well, if you're letting creeps win these elections, you're leaving money on the table, right? It's like,
you just have to use all the tools available in your
Yeah.
kit and understand that there is fundamentally, of course, no substitute for class consciousness and a mobilized mass movement, but that the leadership that exists still does have power in the sense that our government's power has been given to them. And it's better to have people in those offices who will do some good things than no good things.
Yeah, and I think even the potholes as just as a policy thing is great because it's a change that people notice, as opposed to like a lot of the things that liberals or like a Pete Buttigieg type would get excited about, which is
because then you have to look at the graphs and you have to be a spreadsheet pervert.
This granular incrementalist stuff that no average person wants or is into. It's hard to pitch why it's important to an average person, even though it is important. Yes. I would agree. There's a lot of taxation policy stuff, and there's a lot of economic policy stuff that I don't understand, but I acknowledge is, the core of how you run stuff. But like you're talking about trying to articulate this to a mass of dummies, like me, I'm a dummy and I know I'm not excited by this stuff. So it's like, oh my God, you're trying to win over a base here,
Right. Give concrete examples of the changes that you have made, because even if you can't accomplish all of the objectives, if you've accomplished one concrete objective that matches something that you have promised that you will do, that's what people will grab onto, which is so fucking obvious. Like, of course this is going to work. But we have been for so long so very we have had these politicians who simply refuse to promise anything objective or measurable.
Yeah.
Because they know that if their work can be objective, it can be measured against.
Yeah.
And you don't have to...
Yeah, or whatever objective thing they do promise is like very small and incremental. Right. And
exactly.
So that it can't possibly fail. But nobody notices it. So it's like almost as if you've done nothing in the eyes of someone who is prospectively voting for you.
Right.
We've been talking for a bit now. This is a hearty podcast length.
It is.
And I know. Do you want to talk for more? We can. I know you got to get to
going.
recording.
I got to go pee real quick, but I'm happy to keep going. Okay. I love the art of podcasting.
It's the art of podcasting. No, we'll let you get to the bathroom. We'll end the podcast here. It's a bathroom end.
That's hey, again, up to you. I genuinely am more than happy to keep going if you would like.
Yeah, I know. I love talking like that. I love being Trogan. I love doing Trogan. But who cares? Give me your plugs. What are your plugs?
All right, the bathroom end it is. So I co-host two podcasts. One of them is called The Worst of All Possible Worlds, where we talk about media and pop culture, specifically looking at dying empire and how these strange pieces of media contribute to or maybe subvert the decline of empire. And we talk about pretty much everything: video games, movies, TV shows, a long-running children's Christian radio drama. These are among the many subjects that we cover. So generally speaking, what I recommend doing if you want to check our show out is just go through the list and see if there's a piece of media that is relevant to your interests that you enjoy or hate or anywhere in between, and have a listen and see what you think. We release every week. Every other week's episode is Patreon only. You can go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/worstofall, or go to our website, which is worstpossible.world, to find out how to get the podcast. The other show that I co-host, and the one that we talked a bit more about on this episode, is called Ill Conceived. We're tracking the project of natalism, the ideology that sees declining birth rates as the most pressing policy matter of our times, which is not our position, but it is a position that we are very interested in interrogating. I do that with my friend June Sternbach, aka Junel Purr, or Onion Person, or whatever you want to call her. And that is a show that we release. Actually, it's the same cadence as The Worst of All Possible Worlds, where it's weekly, but every other week is a Patreon episode. Patreon.com/illconceived is the Patreon for that one, or our website, illconceivedpodcast.com. And thank you so much again, House, for having me on.
Thank you for being on. I love talking to you. You're a very good talker, hence the podcast.
You know what? I've been podcasting for a while. What can I say? No, real blast. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. Have a great day.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.
House of Decline is brought to you by members of our $10 Patreon tier. These include Fiat Lux, Jody Shen, Daniel Stern, Stephen Pikelny, Miles Forrester, Big Fan of Noise, TC, Garf Dude, Leslie Adams, LJ Amber, Jordan Rabe, Niraj Kumar, Grant Williams, Trungles, Peter Ramin, Janelle, Grace Underfiero, Champ Champenstein, Michael Shelton, Junie V, Claire Brown, Vivi, Bird, Colin McLeod, OnlyFans, Extra Leopards, Nick Cortese, Katie Lacey, Tomato God, Tessa, Teresa Boxlighter, Kate, and Stephen Wilshire. Thank you so much for your contributions. All of you are wonderful, except for one, but I won't say who. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to you.